It was like any other morning. I sat down at my desk and started my daily routine of checking my email. But among the various emails I had in my inbox, one caught my attention. It was sent by somebody I didn't know and had a really suspicious subject title that said, "Before your shift at Starbucks, check out these videos of yourself." I figured it was just another phishing email trying to scam me or give me a virus on my computer. But the fact that it suggested I worked at Starbucks, which I did, made me worry that it was more than just a coincidence. And when I clicked on it, my worst nightmares were confirmed. I was able to see thumbnails of what were clearly videos of myself. But not only were they videos of myself, they were videos of me during my most private and intimate moments. I'm not even really comfortable describing in detail what I was doing in some of the videos, but let's just say there's something you would never want others to see. But here I was, staring at them, knowing somebody or many others have been watching me. They must have somehow hacked into the camera on my computer. How can I be so stupid? My family and friends had been telling me for years to cover the camera when I wasn't using it. But I couldn't believe the idea that somebody could just hack into my camera like that. I was so wrong. I just sat there, numb and beyond horrified. But after a few moments of frantically looking at some of the thumbnails, I eventually read the message in the email. Long story short, it was sent by a group of hackers, and now they were blackmailing me. They said that if I didn't send them $1,000 every month for a year, they would send the videos to all my friends and family. Right at that moment, I felt like throwing up. I've heard of something like this happening to others, but I never would have imagined it happening to me. My mind started racing. I was horrified at the idea of these videos being sent to all the people in my life. But I knew I couldn't give in to the hackers' demands. They would just demand more and more money until I couldn't pay. And they probably would release the videos anyway. I didn't waste any time after reading the email. I went straight to contacting the FBI, and they got on the case right away. I was so distraught at the consequences of my actions that I didn't even go to work that day. But surprisingly, the videos never ended up being sent to my friends or family. The FBI worked on the case for months, but never got any leads. I was very paranoid for a long time after. Sometimes I would look out my window and see a mysterious black car parked outside my house. But before my roommates and I were able to inspect the matter further, the car would leave. To this day, I still have no idea who the hackers were and why they didn't leak the videos to everybody I knew. But the FBI did tell me that the pictures were most likely on the deep web. I'm still going to therapy because of what happened. I've also made sure to tape over all my web cameras. But none of that is ever going to get rid of the extreme anxiety I have these days. Maybe that's why the hackers didn't release my videos to everybody I knew. They like knowing that I'll be paranoid about it for the rest of my life.
While I was in high school, I had a really awesome job working security at a cemetery that was only a couple of miles away from my house. It was a great job while in high school, since it paid slightly more than minimum wage. However, I had to work the graveyard shift on the weekends. At first, I didn't mind the late shift since I never saw anyone after we closed. But also I got to stay in my truck and listen to the radio. The biggest and most important thing about all of this was at the time, I didn't believe in ghosts. The job was great for me since I got paid hourly to basically do nothing. However, my enthusiasm for my job slowly dissipated as a couple of events that I can't explain occurred, slowly turning me into a believer. The first thing that happened that I thought was really strange was this odd mist that would only come in during the nighttime. This made shining my flashlight around the dark cemetery all the more difficult. I wrote off the mist as just being the cold weather during the night, a rather simple explanation. There were parts of the graveyard that I would avoid at night, not that I was afraid or anything, but mainly because my radio didn't get that great of reception. It would seem I would always get a blend of two stations around this one tombstone, which I always thought was weird. It would be the only part of the graveyard that would do it. On the tombstone was the death date, June 6th, 2006. Or in other words, 666. I am not a superstitious person, but I always thought that was weird. The next thing that I noticed that I thought was weird were the lights. When I'm saying lights, I'm not referring to the lampposts inside the cemetery. I'm referring to actual lights that floated and hovered around the cemetery. At first, I thought they were these lightning bugs, but typically, those give off a greenish-yellow glow for a few seconds. These lights that I would sometimes see were white. Rather than dissipating after a few seconds, they lasted for a couple of minutes and moved very slowly. I wrote off this experience as a mixture between the mist that hovered in the graveyard and the passing cars that would sometimes pass by the cemetery throughout the night. This explanation didn't really hold up considering not that many cars drove by that late at night. The lights didn't scare me, they just made me uneasy. It was as if the alleged spirits of the graveyard were reminding me that I wasn't alone. The things that did scare me were the shadow people. I remember seeing my first shadow person. I thought that someone had broken into the cemetery. At this point in my security career, I didn't believe in the paranormal. Because of this, the only reasonable explanation that I could come up with was someone had broken in and that I needed to find them. I left my truck and chased after them, but I obviously ended up empty-handed, as well as a good distance away from my truck that I originally wanted to be. On my long and lonesome walk back from my frivolous pursuit, I thought I heard whispering all around me. Normally I would write this off as the wind in the trees, but I heard actual words, as well as my name. My full name. This obviously bothered me, and I spent the rest of the evening inside my truck. There was another time I was doing a patrol while I remained inside the safety of my truck, while listening to the radio. I was disoriented with all the mist and I hadn't realized I was near the 666 tombstone, and my radio went on the fritz. Instead of the normally merging the two radio stations, I heard something very deep and growling coming from my radio. It told me the exact day I would die in a very demonic voice. This event wasn't nearly as scary, but a part of me is quite curious to see if this would be correct. Granted, this experience was probably just someone fooling around on the radio late at night, but you better believe me when I tell you I have the exact date written down, just in case.
If you aren't familiar with Patreon, it's an easy way for those interested in my work to see new exclusive content and updates before anyone else. By contributing as little as $1 per month, patrons will enable me to dedicate more of my time to creating by helping cover the many costs incurred for my work. You have access to a Discord chat, and you can chat directly with me at any time, among other things. Don't forget to check it out.
Recently, I was playing with my friends in front of my house. We were just goofing around and hanging out. We always play after school in front of my house, but we live all close to each other. It's a nice neighborhood, safe, and we usually stay till dark just before dinner time. But this one day, we were playing with the soccer ball and I accidentally kicked the ball too far and it went to the front yard of another house, right in front of the living room window. Now, we know that this house doesn't have anyone living in it, but Sam, when he ran to get the ball, he stood in front of the living room window and he froze right in front of it. He was scared with something, and so he ran back to us and told us what he saw. He said that just when he reached the ball and stood in front of the window, he looked inside and someone was staring back at him. In his own description, to be more specific, it was a kid, our age approximately, but his skin was grayish, pale, and his face looked deformed. Me and Jack looked at each other and smiled. We thought Sam was just messing around, and we told him, Sure, Sam, a creepy kid lives in that house alone. We laughed a little more and went to our houses. The next day came, and after school we met in front of my house in the street, but this time only Jack appeared. For some reason Sam wasn't there. That wasn't usual because we meet every day after school to play. We tried to let it go and played ourselves. That night I heard someone speaking with my mother in the living room, but it sounded like a woman crying. I approached and peeked from the corner and saw Sam's mother sitting on my couch, crying. My mother was at her side trying to comfort her. I felt worried. Maybe something happened to Sam. That's why he didn't appear in the afternoon. Anyway, I was awake all night thinking about it. And the next day I spoke with Jack about what happened. Sam was missing, I was sure, and maybe what he said about that kid he saw in that house was true. I told Jack I wanted to check that house before it got dark. Maybe Sam could be there. Jack wasn't very happy with the idea of going there, but he agreed. We arrived in the same spot where Sam went to pick up the ball, and we stood there, looking at the window, waiting for something to happen. I couldn't see nothing. There was no one there, at least right now. As I prepared to leave, I looked at Jack and he was looking in front of him, but he looked tense and afraid, but paralyzed. I placed my hand on his shoulder and he screamed and started running. I got startled, but I tried to follow Jack. Luckily, he stopped running when he reached my house. I asked him what the heck was going on. The only words that came out of his mouth were, I saw him. He looked in shock and was breathing heavily, but he kept repeating the same words. He said nothing else. It was getting dark, so we went back to our homes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I think Jack saw that same kid that Sam saw just before disappearing. If that was the case, I feared for Jack's fate, but hope it wasn't related. Morning came, I looked at the alarm clock. 9 a.m. Because it was Saturday and we don't have school, I went immediately to Jack's house. As I got closer to the house, I saw the police car in front of the house. My heart dropped when I saw it. I immediately thought about what Jack and Sam told me. The kid they saw must have had something to do with this. It had to! I decided to see it for myself, for my friends, for my own sake. Even if I wanted to tell someone, I had no evidence or anything to show. I had to do this myself. I went to the house where they saw this kid. Again, I got close to the window and stood there, watching and waiting. Nothing was happening. I decided to go inside. Maybe they were there. The main door wasn't locked, so I just opened and entered. Inside, just an empty space. Nothing in the floors or walls. All normal. I explored a little bit more and found a door to the basement. I walked down the stairs. When I reached the bottom, I looked around, but also, the basement was empty and it looked normal as well. It had 2 small windows, so it had some light from the outside. It wasn't very dark, but there was something very weird about it. I had this feeling, I don't really know how to explain it, but it was like I could hear voices. I felt there were things around me in that basement, but there was nothing there. That was until I was struck with visions that came and go. Flashes of something in there, but in a different place, like a parallel world. The worst part was Sam and Jack were there, inside a cocoon of bloody guts. This world was blood red and it looked like something from a horror movie. My friends trapped there. The visions got stronger and my legs got weaker as they came, more and more. A few more seconds have passed and behind my friends I saw a shadow that slowly became clear. It was a kid with a deformed face and grayish skin. He looked like a kid, but he looked old at the same time. It was the kid Jack and Sam told me about. I was frozen looking at him. He had saw me and somehow he had taken my friend to this world. I feared I was next. As I keep looking at him, slowly from behind him, a shadow starts appearing, like it was possessing that body. It's laughing manically at me and then it launched itself at me. All goes black. I wake up in my bed. I look at the alarm clock. It's 9 a.m. Saturday morning.
A man is doing a bit of cleaning around the house. It's just another Saturday night for him. His phone suddenly makes a ping sound. He smiles when he sees that it's an update from the food he ordered. Your Uber Eats driver is at the restaurant waiting to pick up your order, the message says. After reading the message, he puts his phone away and goes back to cleaning. After a few minutes, he gets another update. Your Uber Eats driver has picked up your order and is on his way, the message says. The man smiles again, relieved. He's starving and can't wait to try the food from the new Chinese place. Several minutes go by before he gets another ping on his phone. Your food stork driver is about to arrive, the message says. Upon reading the latest message, the man starts to clean himself up just in case he has to meet with the driver. But just as he's in the middle of preparing, he gets another ping on his phone. He looks at it, thinking it's another update. However, this time, it's a message from the driver. Ricky. Hey, Greg, having a hard time finding your place. What's the front of the house look like? Greg quickly replies with, front of the house has a potted cactus, porch lights on. The driver responded shortly with, Found it. I'm here. See you real soon. With his food about to be dropped off, Greg takes a few dishes and silverware from the cabinet. But before he can finish preparing, the doorbell rings. Nice, Greg mutters happily. But as he looks through the peephole, he sees a man in a hoodie standing over the bag that contains his food. Why is he still here? Greg asks himself. As he continues to stare through the peephole, the driver proceeds to just stand on his porch. Trying to assess the situation, he looks at his phone again. There, on his screen, is the latest update. Your Uber Eats driver has dropped off your order, the message says. What else does he want? Greg thinks to himself. He looks through the peephole again, only to see the driver still standing there. Damn it, Greg scoffs. I'll just wait here till he leaves. But to his dismay, his phone makes a ping sound as he gets a message. Crap, Greg thinks to himself. That freak must know I'm by the door now. His worst fears confirmed when the hooded man outside starts to speak.
Hey, sorry to bother you. I just sent you a message asking if I could use your bathroom. It was kind of a long drive and I really gotta go. There aren't any stores nearby and all the lights from the neighbors' houses seem to be off.
Greg is caught off guard by the request, but he definitely has no intention of letting this strange man into the house. No, sorry, I can't help you. I'm actually in the middle of cleaning, Greg replies. And, there's a solution in the toilet that needs to soak for a while.
Oh, come on. Please? I really have to go.
The driver responded. Just piss in the bushes if you want. I don't mind, Greg replied.
For real? I can't do that. I might get arrested.
The driver said. Then, sorry, I can't help you, Greg replies. Greg hears the driver grunt from behind the door. Despite the fact that he angered the driver, there's no way he was letting him in the house. As Greg looks through the peephole, he sees the driver finally walking away. Breathing a sigh of relief, Greg waits a few minutes to make sure the coast is clear. Upon seeing that nobody is in his yard, he opens the door to retrieve his order. But just as he does, the driver suddenly appears out of nowhere. He walks with a fast pace towards Greg's porch.
Seriously, just let me use your bathroom. I really need to go,
the driver yells. Greg is momentarily jarred by the sight, but he gets himself together and hastily grabs his order before retreating back into the house and shuts the door right behind him. As Greg locks it, the driver once again lets out an audible grunt of frustration, and as he begins to walk away, the driver murmurs the word,
asshole.
It's followed soon after by the sound of footsteps leaving. To his relief, the coast is clear once again, but this time, Greg hears the sound of a car driving. Finally, Greg says to himself. He walks over to the kitchen with his much-awaited food in hand. He's irritated to see that the restaurant forgot the soy sauce. He opens the fridge and digs through it, looking for the soy sauce. Getting a bit frustrated, he asks, "So, Greg, where do you keep the soy sauce?" There, lying just a few feet away on the kitchen floor, is the mutilated and bloody body of the real Greg, wrapped in a plastic sheet. "Where'd you say?" the man asks, acting as if the corpse responded to him. "Oh, there it is," the man happily says as he grabs the bottle of soy sauce. He looks towards Greg's corpse again. "Thanks, Greg," the man says. "Oh, and thanks for letting me use your Uber Eats account again for dinner."